All right, listen up, defenders of the perimeter. This is a Code Ninja security advisory, and we are currently tracking a critical perimeter breach that needs your immediate attention. Seriously, if you're operating any internet infrastructure using NGINX, you're going to want to stop what you're doing. We've got a confirmed data plane flaw sitting right inside the NGINX HTTP/3 QUIC module. It's officially tagged as CVE 2026-4460. As a senior white hat security researcher, my goal for this explainer is simple. I'm handing you the precise, actionable intelligence you need to lock down those systems right now, before threat actors can weaponize this thing against you. Okay, let's dive right into this. Our primary objective here is crystal clear. We need to force vendor patches across your environments, and we need to execute immediate mitigation against unauthenticated source IP spoofing. Think of this explainer as raw, actionable intelligence. Now, to be clear, we aren't dealing with a control plane exposure today. No, this is strictly a data plane flaw. But listen, make no mistake, leaving your data plane exposed to IP spoofing, that fundamentally compromises the integrity of your entire network. We've got to secure that perimeter, and we've got to do it today. You know, what's wild about this is the sheer velocity of the Coordinated Vulnerability Disclosure, or CVD. Just look at how fast this moved. On May 13, 2026, F5 Networks officially submitted the CVE to the National Vulnerability Database and pushed out their primary advisory. Literally the very next day, May 14th, massive downstream vendors like SUSE and Canonical Ubuntu kicked off their triage protocols. And by May 15th, F5 had already refined their advisory to make absolutely sure the security community had the best patch intel possible. Guys, this is incredibly fresh intelligence. The speed at which the whole ecosystem is reacting, yeah, that tells you exactly how seriously the industry is treating this threat. Okay, before we get into the actual mechanics of how this exploit works, we need to execute a quick tactical pause for a comms check. Look, security is a team sport, right? Real-time intelligence is an absolute necessity. So I need you to hit subscribe on @cybertech79 right now and flip on those notifications so you never miss a critical advisory like this one. Next, do me a favor and drop a like on this explainer. We're going to consider that your official ACK, your acknowledgement of receipt for this intel. And finally, jump into the comments and report your status. Are you patched? Are you currently vulnerable? We really need to gauge the real-world blast radius of this 0-day across the community. All right, now, what's really interesting here is the mechanics of the threat itself. We're looking at CWE 390. That's authentication bypass by spoofing. Basically, when NGINX Plus, or NGINX Open Source, is set up to use the HTTP/3 QUIC module, an attacker can actually manipulate their network packets to spoof their source IP address. Now, why does that matter to us? Well, if your backend relies on IP-based authorization or rate-limiting controls to keep the bad guys out, this attacker just strolled right past your security guards. They completely bypass your limits, they can flood your system, and boom, that potentially triggers a devastating denial of service condition. So again, while your control plane is safe, your data plan is sitting completely exposed. And those mechanics, they perfectly explain the formal threat level metrics F5 Networks just put out. On the CVSS version 3.1 scale, this vulnerability sits at a solid 6.5. And if we look at the newer CVSS version 4.0, it bumps up to a 6.9. Both of those scales categorize this as a medium severity threat. But hold on, look really closely at those attack vectors. The attack vector is network, privileges required, 0. User interaction, absolutely none. Think about what that actually means. A remote, completely unauthenticated attacker can just execute this exploit right over the network. They don't need anyone inside your organization to accidentally click a phishing link or mess up a config. It is a completely automated, silent threat to your infrastructure. So the absolutely crucial point here is defining our exact blast radius. Who's actually in the crosshairs? Well, if you are running NGINX Plus versions R32 through R36 or NGINX open source versions 1.25.0 through 1.30.0, you are directly vulnerable. Period. This also scoops up NGINX Instance Manager and the F5 WAF for NGINX. And as we move further down the supply chain, SUSE has officially confirmed that their Linux Enterprise Server 16.1, as well as the server for SAP Applications 16.1, are affected. Oh, and exercise extreme caution if you're in a canonical Ubuntu environment. They've currently placed the NGINX package across all their major releases, literally from the legacy 14.04 LTS all the way up to the shiny new 26.04 LTS under a needs evaluation status. So if you're an Ubuntu user, you definitely cannot assume you're safe just yet. All right, you know the threat, so here is your emergency patch protocol. Step 1 is immediate mitigation. Look, if organizational constraints or change freezes prevent you from doing a full patch cycle today, you must immediately disable QUIC within the listen directive of your NGINX configuration. Think of that as your temporary tourniquet to stop the bleeding. But the mandated permanent fix definitely requires upgrading your software. For NGINX open source, you've got to upgrade to version 1.30.1 or 1.31.0. And if you're running NGINX Plus, your specific upgrade path is version 37.0.0, or you can grab the applicable point releases like R36P4 or R32P6. Bottom line, get these updates executed. Now, you might be wondering why we broadcast this kind of intel so aggressively. Well, it comes down to a core philosophy. Transparency and speed are literally the most critical tools we have in minimizing the window of exploitation. You, the users, need to know this stuff to protect your systems, period. I really want to take a second to formally thank Rodrigo Laneth over at Miriam Research for actually discovering this vulnerability. By stepping up and practicing ethical, coordinated vulnerability disclosure, Rodrigo gave F5 the crucial lead time they needed to actually build these patches before the threat actors could silently weaponize this flaw out in the wild. That is huge. So I'm going to leave you with one final provocative question to evaluate with your security teams today. Will your perimeter hold until the patch is deployed? Seriously, think about it. Because if you are running vulnerable versions of this module right now, your IP-based authorization and rate limiting are functionally broken. They just don't work. And honestly, a false sense of security is way worse than a known acknowledged vulnerability. So please, take the mitigation steps, apply the patches, and lock down that data plane. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and above all else, stay secure.